Welcome back, viewers. Now, in today's final segment of the show Scope, we're going to discuss Yemeni families, two Yemeni families, who have filed a petition against the U.S. government over drone strikes that killed approximately 34 of their relatives between the years 2013 and 2018. Now, of course, the United States has not just been involved in drone operations in a country like Yemen, but in other places such as Somalia, even where I'm sitting right now here in Pakistan. And there's always been concerns about civilian casualties, what the U.S. would call collateral damage in many regards. And, you know, as much as drones are celebrated as a military technological advancement, they are an imprecise art, aren't they? They do very many times result in significant collateral damage, for which the United States does sometimes pay out hefty sums to respective families. But then why even use these drones in that fashion if the intelligence is so weak in many of these cases, or if there's even a potential for civilians to be killed? I mean, there's of course a lot to discuss here overall about that sort of weapons program. Let's put all those questions to Dr. Lyal Sunga, who is joining us today from Rome in Italy. He is a visiting professor of the Raoul Wallenberg Institute of Human Rights and Humanitarian Law at Lund University. Lyal, thank you very much for your time and for joining us once again here in Scope. What do you make of this petition against the U.S. government? I mean, obviously, I would think that it won't make a huge difference when it comes to a U.S. policy, but nevertheless, it's important to hold the government to account, right?
You know, the bringing a petition to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights is a very important step, because the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has been very, very diligent and thorough whenever it conducts an investigation. It's a remarkably strong institution in the way that it documents serious violations. Now, there are some jurisdictional issues. You know, these violations took place outside the Americas, and the Inter-American Commission has really jurisdiction within the Americas and over state parties. But you know, perhaps those jurisdictional issues can be cleared. Let me just say that there was a case not that long ago where the Inter-American Commission, found the United States in violation of its obligations under the American Convention on Human Rights. This is a regional human rights system with respect to Guantanamo Bay prisoners. So what can it do? Can it actually force the U.S. to change policy completely? Probably not, but it could put a lot of pressure and put the spotlight. And so it could have a strong indirect moral suasion and political pressure effect. And I think that could be very, very useful. So I'm glad to see this go forward.
Lyal, I imagine one of the challenges when it comes to the issue of drone warfare overall is that because it's so out of sight and mind of the average American, or for other countries that respectively use drone warfare as well, that creates this challenge because you don't have that exact amount of political pressure that you would have if you had, for example, American soldiers being the ones carrying out these sort of killings.
Yes, and the way that this has been used, and since 2013, it was Michael Hayden, who was the outgoing CIA director at the time, and John Brennan, who was the counterterrorism advisor to the Obama administration. They urged upon Obama the whole idea of ramping up drone warfare in Yemen and other places. You know, in the first drone attack was in November 2002 under the Bush administration, but there hadn't been any others really since then until 2013. Now, Obama bought this argument that what you mentioned earlier was that they are very precise. They limit civilian casualties and so-called collateral damage. And they're the best way to fight the war on terror, which, by the way, is the whole thing. The war on terror with respect to Yemen is itself very suspect, because there wasn't really much of Al-Qaeda in the Arab Peninsula before these provocations. Neither parties to the civil war or since the Yemeni revolution were much interested in ISIL. Now there are some elements there probably, but Abdullah Saleh, when he was around, skillfully used the U.S. And the U.S. very naively bought into intervention in Yemen, saying that there's this big, terrorist threat, and went after Anwar al-Awlaki and his American citizen killed by drone in Yemeni territory, and his son, 16-year-old son, was killed when he was eating dinner on a separate occasion, weeks later, I should say, after Anwar al-Awlaki was killed. What about fair trial? What about proper intelligence, et cetera, et cetera? This is all reliance on signals intelligence, from cell phone metadata and everything else, rather than human intelligence, informants on the ground, et cetera. So of course there's going to be a lot of civilian deaths, and that's what these two families are complaining about, is that they were having a wedding and these drones come out of the sky and kill family members on both sides of the family who are meeting to so this is really a problem.
Because, Lyal, the other concern here, as I'm sure you're more than well aware of, is that if you kill innocents, then there is this huge possibility that, in fact, you're opening up the remaining loved ones left behind to radicalization. I mean, so you're sort of defeating the entire purpose of why you even carried out the attack. Is that fair to say?
Everybody can see that these type of, drone attacks in a country that is not a field of battle operations for the United States. What's it doing there in the first place? I know it's supposed to be counterterrorism operations. Well, I don't know how the U.S. gets to decide that and then start using these things that kill civilians. So that's questionable in the first instance. But yes, it's the best way to recruit terrorism, terrorist, fervor, because people can see that it's quite arbitrary, and that these attacks have not worked in the sense of targeting precisely militants and civil terrorist suspects who should be captured if possible, rather than just summarily executed. So everybody can see these are extrajudicial killings. This is an assassination policy. And this is not the way things should be done. It's very, very clumsy. It's immoral, and it's most probably illegal under international law. So the whole thing is a disaster, and Obama is mainly responsible for that, and then Trump as well, who just followed through with the policy and further increased the carnage. So yeah, I agree with you completely. And something has, Biden, maybe the Biden administration. I'm not going to hold my breath, but maybe the Biden administration would revisit this policy and start coming around to, revisit what the hell is the United States doing in Yemen, and especially with drones.
Fingers crossed, yes. We'll very close eye on that, Lyal, but we sincerely appreciate you taking your time out today to share your expert insight with us. That was Lyal Sunga speaking to us from Rome in Italy, sharing his insight, as I said, upon this petition that has been filed by these two Yemeni families to hold the U.S. to account for killing 34 of their innocent relatives, according to these families, between the years 2013 and 2018. Will the U.S. be held to account? As Lyal there correctly said, of course, this very organization has held the United States to account in the past, or at least has called it out. Does it matter to U.S. policy when it comes to drone warfare? Likely not, but at least it's important to have these sorts of forms of accountability so that the world knows, Americans especially know, that just because it's out of sight and mind, just because it's sort of joystick warfare that they just don't know enough about, doesn't mean that the innocents who are being killed at the other end do not deserve accountability, or that this doesn't actually defeat the entire purpose of the war on terror, because it actually just creates further radicalization. You're feeding the very monster that you're meant to be fighting, or you claim you are trying to kill altogether. I'll leave it there for now. I've been Waqar Rizvi. Thanks for watching.